good evening. Welcome to In Focus with Bokra. I'm Masal Jeremiah. I'm with Mr. Aaron Nyelesi, Director Broadcasting and Corporate Communications, where we'll be unpacking the mandate or role of the UASF. Mr. Nyelesi, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
First, just tell us, what is UASF? What does it even stand for?
UASF stands for Universal Access and Service Fund. This is a fund created by the Botswana Communications Regulatory Authority, BOCRA, through what is called a notarial deed of trust back in 2014. The purpose of the fund is to facilitate the rollout of communication services throughout Botswana. And throughout Botswana, inevitably will include those areas that are otherwise termed unprofitable, which are then left unserved or underserved by our licensees. The story behind it is that as BOCRA, we have a role or a mandate to ensure that we have or we facilitate the rollout of communication services throughout the country. And to do that, we then issue licenses to our operators, the likes of your Mascoms, your Oranges, your BTC, and your commercial radio broadcasters, your Botswana Post. And we expect that they can then serve the entire Botswana. But because they are in business, they tend to serve only those areas. Generally, they serve only those areas from which they can make profit. And therefore, other areas are left unserved. Now, government would say, I have a responsibility as government, a social responsibility to ensure that every Motswana has communication services of the same quality, affordability as those who are in affordable areas. And therefore, BOCRA find a way of ensuring that every Motswana has access to these communication services. Hence, BOCRA then created the Universal Access and Service Fund, which is a fund that creates or that collects money from our licensees. We collect 1% of net turnover fees from our licensees, all those that we have issued license. In fact, there are selected ones like your Orange, your Mascom, your BTC, your Duma FM, your Gaps FM, YTV, Botswana Post, Bofinet. And then the money that remains out of BOCRA's budget at the end of the financial year, when all costs have been paid off, is also put into this fund. This is what then makes the Universal Access and Service Fund. We use this money to then subsidize the rollout of communication services to those places that would otherwise be expensive for operators to go it alone. In a nutshell, that is the Universal Service and Access Fund.
You keep indicating words like the fund is used to serve areas that are unserved and underserved. I want you to maybe unpack it a little bit. What gets a village or an entity or a specific settlement to be defined or categorized as unserved or underserved?
As I've said in my introduction, our licensees typically are in business. Being in business, it means they then go around the country and they assess where they can make money or where they put their services and they can get a return on their investment. And generally, they will be looking at places that have a high population, places that have good economic activity, like typically your cities, your towns, and your major villages. You then have smaller villages, maybe with a population less than 500, with not much economic activity except for your typical agrarian business, maybe subsistence farming. So generally, your licensees will not go into such areas voluntarily, because it means for you to go into an area like that, as an example, you might be required to put in a transmitter that could be costing you, say, 1 million pula, and then you would have running costs, maybe with Botswana Power Corporation giving you power for that transmitter to be on, and then you are probably paying another 10,000 every month to keep it on. But you look at the people that are then going to be serviced by that transmitter. If there are 500, typically if it's a rural village, You might find a quarter of that are old people, they are not working. A quarter of those maybe are children. You'll have only a few who are normally employees or employed and working in that community. And therefore, they will not be able to give you enough money to defray your expenses for putting up such a transmitter. So generally, a licensee will not willy-nilly, will not just choose to go into an area like that. Hence, such areas are normally left unserved, or we normally say they are underserved. They have very little communications activity because of that reason. But then the universal service is meant to ensure that we can then subsidize the cost of providing service to such areas, such that such people also have a service just like everybody else.
Okay, then maybe just one more question before we go for a break. How many entities or companies or organizations contribute towards the fund, and may you just kindly run through the names of the contributors to the UASF?
Yes, your PTOs, as we call them, public telecommunications operators. This will be the likes of Botswana Telecommunications Corporation, or BTC, Orange Botswana, your Mascom Wireless, and also your wholesale provider, as in Botswana Fiber Networks or Bofinet, and then Botswana Post. Then you have a list of commercial postal operators like your Sprint Couriers, your DHL. There are quite a number in that category. Similarly, all your broadcasters, your commercial broadcasters, I must say, because Radio Botswana and Botswana Television are excluded from this. Typically, those that contribute would be your commercial broadcasters, Yarona FM, Duma FM, Gaps FM, including YTV.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nyadesi. Let's go for a commercial break.